What are you looking for? Where will your heart's desire take you?
Let's go!
Alright, how's it going? JJ Starwind is here, and welcome to another JJ Starwind Corner episode 62. This one is going to be pretty random because there's a few topics I want to look over, mainly 3, could be 4. So, let's first talk about COVID right quick. So, shout out to Gaming Geek. He was telling me through this article here from NDTV about the World Health Organization, the chief making it clear. His name is pretty long, so I'll just call him Yeezus since his last name is Ghebreyesus. So anyway, he declares that the COVID pandemic and monkeypox pandemic is over. The emergencies are officially done. However, we all know that the virus is not done. In fact, I know a few people over the past month that have battled COVID as we speak. Some still have it, a few others gotten over it, but it's still around. And what's interesting about the article, if you scroll down, it says that most of the current cases that they're showing with coronavirus is mainly by people that have yet to be vaccinated. So I thought that was very key. And another key thing about the article was the World Health Organization urging China, which is where the COVID started from, the virus, that's where it started. They want them to share information that could pinpoint exactly how it began. So there's still a mystery as to how COVID came about. Some people say it came out of a lab. It seems like the Chinese are kind of sticking to the theory that it came from a seafood market, which is very questionable, but that's kind of what it is right there. So that's that article. I'll leave it in the description box there. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the Atlanta Hawks. So, shout out to VGL. He's a passionate Atlanta Hawks fan, and the team has really been bad this time around, this past 2 weeks. So, ooh, is that my stomach? Sorry about that. So anyway, last night they had a game against the Orlando Magic, and they were down really bad in the first quarter. And then they weren't able to catch up, and they lost by 11 points. So the score was like 135 to 124 in favor of the Magic. Now, what's interesting is that ever since the little spat between the star player Trae Young and the head coach Nate McMillan, the Hawks have only won like one game since that time, and that was like a week and a half ago. I think that was against the Bulls in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. So they've lost the last 7 out of 10 games. The last 7, right? They lost 7 games out of 10 during the last 10 games. So excuse me about that, but man, it's really disturbing. It is really getting bad, and the Hawks' saving grace is the fact that it's still the beginning of the season, and right now the record is right at 500, 14 wins, 14 losses. So with that said, what could be done to kind of get the Hawks turned around again? Because it seems like the star player is having leadership problems. He doesn't seem to be all that mature in handling these stressful situations when it comes to injuries. And so he's not really playing at a high level. And then you got the other guy, John Collins, who I've seen on several articles right now that the Hawks are trying to get rid of him. They're trying to trade him off. I heard one team was the Pacers, the other team was the Jazz. So they're trying to get rid of him. So they got a lot of young players on that team that are experienced, and they can't seem to hold leads, and they just can't seem to play quality defense out there against these other teams out here in the league. It's just really bad right now. So I can't really put all the blame on the head coach. When you got a leader that kind of, a star player that's showing poor leadership qualities, and then you got a bunch of other star players or go-to players that are hurt all the time, there's only so much you can do as a coach. Right? So the Hawks at this current time, and they're down their luck this past season. They just are, okay? They got a lot more games to play, so let's see if they can kind of turn this around. Otherwise, they might as well just sit it out and wait for the high draft pick to come through. That's all I got to say about the Hawks. And so I guess the final topic is kind of, it's not really related to this particular group, even though critics are trying to link this group as to the reason why this particular country, known as Indonesia, decided to create certain laws to mitigate the illegal prostitution and also criticism of the government. So this has to do with the passport bros. I know some of my people on the channel don't follow me because of travel talk or travel topics, but basically a passport bro, that has more to do with the black side of YouTube. And they're just basically guys with passports, and they travel to various countries, or they just go back and forth to their favorite country overseas and try to get away from America's social problems and potentially make economic opportunities as well. But it's mainly social, just to kind of see the world and try to be the better man than they were back home in the States. So that's the gist of Passport Bros. So it's a lot more nuances to it, but that's a quick definition there. But the critics of the Passport Bros, they've been wanting to link those guys as the reason why Indonesia in particular made a couple laws this past week. And the big one was the fact that there's a ban on premarital sex. So you can't have a relationship, or you can't fornicate with the opposite sex within the country of Indonesia. So that's, a lot of people took issue with that. Some more progressive locals there, as well as Westerners that kind of like to frequent in and out of Indonesia. But the main place where foreigners go to in Indonesia is Bali. I hear that island often a lot. And there's been several Passport Bro channels that talked about it, from Black Male Travels to Big Truck Series Review and Passport Bro Wingman. So shout out to him. So they kind of addressed this. Like, Bali is really the only place where Westerners in particular actually go to for vacation in Indonesia. And that's because Bali is one of the few areas in Indonesia that's not Muslim. Indonesia is predominantly Muslim nation, for those that don't know. And Bali in particular, their main religion is Hinduism, which is linked to India. So it's kind of interesting to see how Bali is one of those places where it's not Islamic, it's more Hindu related. But people go there to mainly kind of relax and sort of escape the trials and tribulation of Western countries. That's kind of the reason why they go to Bali. It's more of a spiritual, mental thing with them. And while they do have nice beaches and everything, it's not quite as exotic as the Philippines from what I've heard. But I haven't been to Bali yet before. And so yeah, locals in Indonesia in particular, they're kind of taking issue with what a lot of foreigners are doing. It's really just tourists in general, like Passport Bro Wingman said. And I do remember that story a year ago with that girl from the States that went down there to kind of promote Bali as this great tourist destination, when really all she was doing was kind of taking advantage of the taxes in Indonesia and wasn't even paying them. And she was living in these lavish apartments all throughout Bali. And locals took issue with that because they realized the rent prices were escalating. It was going way, way up. So that was an inflation problem. And so the government got involved. They made an investigation. They found out that this girl was like one of the main promoters of people trying to get into Bali, and it was like a scam that she was running too. So they kind of caught her on her bluff, made her go to trial, and she was found guilty, and then they exiled her out the country. I forget her name, but I do remember that story quite well because it was a hot topic back then. I don't know if it was 2021. It might have been 2 years ago, but still. But now, not only can you not have relationships or, get into fornication without marriage in the country, you can't even criticize the government as well. So that law is supposed to be in effect in like 3 years, which would be 2025. Some people are saying it's going to really, really decrease the number of tourists that go into Indonesia. I'm not entirely sure if that's going to be the case. Now, if you're a passport bro that's Muslim, I don't think you should really trip off this, because this actually might work out in your favor, because it's pretty much guaranteed that whatever woman you're seeing in Indonesia, you know that there's a low chance that she's going to get like dogged out, treated out poorly, or she's trying to mess with some other person besides you. So if you're a Muslim guy and you happen to go to Indonesia, or you're Buddhist or whatever, like, this shouldn't be too much of a problem for you. I don't know if you would be that discouraged to go to Indonesia. The only guys that probably wouldn't care would be your more Western tourists that aren't Muslim, Hindu, or Buddhist. They wouldn't really trip off going to Indonesia anyway, because it's not a big destination for people from Western countries. So that's my 2 cents on the whole Indonesia premarital sex ban. Critics that were trying to pinpoint on passport bros are just very misleading. Very few of those guys even know about Indonesia, let alone travel there for a vacation. So it's like, it was pretty stupid of them to criticize them for that. But yeah, how long did I talk about this? It should be 10 minutes now. So yeah, if there's any other topics, I will come back with future episodes. So that's all I have to say there. If anybody else wanted to chime in about those particular topics I mentioned, feel free to do so. This is JJ Starwind, and I'm out.